I sat in the cold, fluorescent-lit conference room at Lincoln Elementary in Denver, my hands clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. Across the long table sat Principal Patricia Morrison, Special Education Coordinator Dr. Vincent Hayes, my son's teacher Mrs. Anderson, and the school psychologist Dr. Chen. And at the end of the table, my 7-year-old son Liam sat in a chair too big for him, stimming quietly with his fidget cube, completely unaware that this meeting was about deciding whether to expel him from school. My name is Sienna Blackwood, and I'm a single mother fighting to keep my autistic son from being punished for having a disability. Principal Morrison cleared her throat, shuffling papers with an air of barely concealed impatience. Ms. Blackwood, thank you for coming in today. As you know from the notice we sent home, we're here to discuss Liam's ongoing behavioral issues and whether Lincoln Elementary can continue to accommodate his needs. His needs are legally protected under his IEP, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the fear coiling in my stomach. He has accommodations that the school is required to provide. We've been providing accommodations, Mrs. Anderson interjected, her tone defensive. But Liam's meltdowns are becoming more frequent and more disruptive. Last week, he knocked over a bookshelf during a sensory overload. He's a danger to himself and other students. He knocked over a bookshelf because you changed the classroom lights without warning him, I countered. Sudden changes in sensory environment are a known trigger. That's documented in his IEP. He needs advance notice of changes. We can't notify every student of every minor change, Mrs. Anderson said dismissively. For Liam, lights aren't a minor change. They're a major sensory issue. That's what autism is. That's why he has an IEP. Principal Morrison held up a hand. Ms. Blackwood, we understand that Liam has challenges. But we also have 24 other students in that classroom who have a right to learn in a safe environment. Liam's behaviors are preventing that. Liam's behaviors are communication, I said, my voice rising despite my best efforts to stay calm. He's 7 years old and mostly non-speaking. When he's overwhelmed, he melts down. That's not a behavior problem, that's a disability manifestation. Dr. Hayes, the special education coordinator who'd been silent until now, leaned forward. Ms. Blackwood, we've conducted a functional behavioral assessment. We've implemented a behavior intervention plan. Despite these supports, Liam continues to have significant incidents. We're concerned that the general education setting isn't appropriate for his needs. You're recommending expulsion, I said flatly. We're recommending a change of placement. There are specialized programs better equipped. You mean you want to segregate my son because accommodating him is inconvenient? That's not. My phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at it, intending to silence it immediately. Then I saw the sender, Mom. And I saw who she'd sent it to, Principal Patricia Morrison. And I saw that I was CC'd. My blood turned to ice. The email was short. Just 3 sentences that would change everything. Patricia, I want to apologize for my daughter's attitude regarding Liam. She's being overly dramatic about his special needs and enabling bad behavior. Please feel free to punish him as you see fit. He needs discipline, not excuses. I stared at those words, my vision tunneling. My mother, my own mother, had just undermined me to my son's principal. Had just told the school that I was being dramatic about my autistic child's legally protected disability. Had just given them permission to punish a 7-year-old for having autism. And she'd CC'd me. She'd wanted me to know she'd done it. Principal Morrison's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and I watched her expression shift, surprise, then something that looked almost like vindication. Ms. Blackwood, she said, her tone changing immediately. I just received an email from your mother expressing different concerns about Liam's situation. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I see that. Since she CC'd me. It seems there's some disagreement in the family about the appropriate approach to Liam's behaviors. There's no disagreement, I said, my voice deadly calm. There's me, his mother, advocating for my disabled son's legal rights. And there's my mother, who has no legal standing in this situation, attempting to undermine that advocacy. Nevertheless, it's concerning that Liam's own grandmother feels. My mother's feelings about my son's disability are irrelevant to this IEP meeting, I interrupted. She's not a party to his education. She has no legal role here. And any communication between her and the school regarding my son without my consent is a violation of FERPA. Dr. Hayes looked uncomfortable. Ms. Blackwood, we're not trying to. Did the school solicit input from my mother? Well, no, but. Then her email is an unsolicited third-party opinion about my child's special education services. It has no bearing on this meeting and shouldn't have been read or considered. Principal Morrison's jaw tightened. Ms. Blackwood, your mother's concerns. Stop calling them concerns. They're attacks on my advocacy for my disabled child. I stood up, my whole body shaking with rage. This meeting is over. I'm requesting copies of all documentation discussed here. I'm also filing a formal complaint about the school's consideration of unauthorized third-party input regarding my son's IEP. Ms. Blackwood, if you leave this meeting, we'll proceed with the expulsion recommendation. No, you won't. Because expelling a disabled student for disability-related behaviors is a violation of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And I will sue this school district into oblivion if you try. I gathered my papers, helped Liam out of his chair. He was confused by my agitation, starting to flap his hands anxiously. It's okay, baby, I told him softly. We're leaving. You're safe. Mrs. Anderson spoke up. Ms. Blackwood, we're just trying to help. Help? I turned to face her. You want to help? Start implementing his IEP as written. Stop treating autism like bad behavior. And tell my mother that her interference in my son's education is not welcome, not legal, and will not be tolerated. I walked out of that conference room with Liam's hand in mine, my phone already dialing my attorney. The woman who answered, Rebecca Walsh, was a special education attorney I'd consulted once before when the school had tried to reduce Liam's services. Rebecca, I need you to file a due process complaint against Lincoln Elementary. Today. What happened? They tried to expel Liam for autism-related behaviors. And my mother sent an email to the principal undermining my advocacy and encouraging them to punish my autistic son. They read it in the IEP meeting. They what? Rebecca's voice went sharp. Did you consent to that communication? No. And I'm CC'd on it, so I have proof. Forward that email to me immediately. Sienna, they just violated FERPA by accepting and acting on confidential information about your son from an unauthorized third party. That's huge. I forwarded the email while walking to my car, Liam stimmying beside me, humming his comfort sounds. I need them to understand they can't do this, I said. They can't punish my son for being autistic. And my mother can't sabotage his education. They won't when I'm done with them, Rebecca said grimly. Get home, write down everything that happened in that meeting, and send it to me. I'm filing the complaint today and requesting an immediate stay of any disciplinary action. That evening, after I'd gotten Liam settled with his iPad and weighted blanket, I called my mother. She answered on the second ring, her voice cheerful. Sienna. How did the school meeting go? How did? I couldn't believe her audacity. How could you? How could I what? You emailed Liam's principal. You told her I was being dramatic. You gave her permission to punish my autistic child for having autism. And you CC'd me so I'd know you'd betrayed us. Betrayed? She laughed. Sienna, I'm trying to help. You're so focused on this autism label that you're not seeing that Liam just needs discipline. Structure. Consequences. He's autistic, Mom. He has a documented disability. His behaviors aren't defiance, they're communication and sensory responses. That's what you keep saying, but I see a child who gets away with everything because you make excuses. Accommodations aren't excuses. They're legally mandated supports for a disabled child. You're enabling him, Sienna. And that school is too soft. Someone needed to tell them the truth, that Liam would benefit from actual consequences instead of all this coddling. I closed my eyes, trying to control my breathing. Mom, what you did was illegal. You had no right to contact the school about Liam without my consent. You violated federal education privacy laws. Oh, please. I'm his grandmother. I have every right. You have no rights. None. You're not his legal guardian. You're not a party to his IEP. And your interference has now endangered his education. I was trying to help. Those teachers are clearly being manipulated by you into thinking. I've hired an attorney. She's filing a due process complaint against the school district that will include your email as evidence of third-party interference. And I'm formally notifying you, you are not to contact anyone at Liam's school again. Ever. Any future contact will be treated as harassment and will be reported to authorities. You're overreacting. I'm protecting my son from you. Because apparently, you're more interested in punishing him for having autism than in understanding what he needs. Sienna Marie Blackwood, you don't talk to me like that. I just did. And here's something else, until you can accept that Liam is autistic, that his autism is real and valid and not a result of my parenting, you're not allowed around him. I won't expose my son to someone who sees his disability as bad behavior that needs to be punished. You're cutting me off from my grandson? I'm protecting my son from someone who just tried to get him expelled from school. There's a difference. I hung up. My hands were shaking. My mother and I had always had a complicated relationship, but I'd never imagined she'd sabotage Liam like this. That she'd actively work against his needs, his rights, his future. But she had. And now I had to deal with the consequences. The due process complaint was filed the next day. Within 48 hours, the school district's attorney contacted Rebecca requesting a resolution meeting. They're scared, Rebecca told me over the phone. Your mother's email is a smoking gun. They accepted and acted on confidential information from an unauthorized party. That's a clear FERPA violation, plus they tried to expel a disabled student for disability-related behaviors. They know they're in the wrong. What do they want? To settle before this goes to hearing. They're offering to withdraw the expulsion recommendation and provide compensatory services for the violations of Liam's IEP. What kind of services? Additional speech therapy, occupational therapy, and a full-time aide for the remainder of the school year. Plus staff training on autism and sensory needs. It was more than I'd dared hope for. And what about my mother? I'm drafting a formal letter from you to the school district stating that your mother has no authority regarding Liam's education and any future contact from her should be reported to you immediately and not acted upon. Can we make that legally binding? We can include it in the settlement agreement. The district will be required to maintain a communication log showing all contacts regarding Liam and to immediately notify you of any unauthorized communications. Do it. The settlement was finalized 2 weeks later. Liam would remain at Lincoln Elementary with significantly enhanced supports, the staff would receive mandatory training on autism, and any communication from my mother regarding Liam would be immediately reported to me and not acted upon. Additionally, and this part made me smile, the school district agreed to revise their policies on third-party communications about students with IEPs, implementing stricter protocols to prevent future violations. My mother's interference had accidentally forced systemic change that would protect other disabled students. But she wasn't done trying. 3 days after the settlement was signed, I got a call from Liam's new aide, Ms. Rodriguez. Ms. Blackwood, I wanted to let you know that your mother attempted to pick up Liam from school today. My stomach dropped. What? She came to the office and told them she was here to take Liam to a doctor's appointment. She wasn't on the approved pickup list, so they refused and called me. I came down and explained that she's not authorized. She became quite agitated and insisted she had the right as his grandmother. Did she have any contact with Liam? No. We kept him in the classroom. But she was very insistent, Ms. Blackwood. The office staff had to threaten to call the police before she left. I thanked her and immediately called the school to update Liam's safety plan. No one except me and 2 trusted friends were authorized for pickup. If my mother appeared again, they were to call the police immediately. Then I called my attorney. Rebecca, my mother just tried to take Liam from school without authorization. That's attempted custodial interference. You need to document everything and consider a restraining order. A restraining order against my own mother? A restraining order against someone who's actively trying to interfere with your disabled child's education and safety. Family relationship doesn't give her the right to endanger him. That evening, I got a series of increasingly unhinged texts from my mother. You've brainwashed the school against me. I have a right to see my grandson. You're using this autism excuse to control everyone. Liam doesn't need special services, he needs discipline. I'm going to file for grandparents' rights. You're an unfit mother who's destroying that child. I screenshot each one and sent them to Rebecca. File for the restraining order, I told her. I can't have her disrupting Liam's life like this. The temporary restraining order was granted within a week. My mother was prohibited from contacting me except through attorneys, from approaching Liam's school, and from attempting any contact with Liam. She violated it 3 days later by showing up at my house. I called the police. They arrested her for violating the restraining order. She spent 6 hours in jail before being released with a court date. At the hearing, she stood before the judge and tried to explain herself. Your Honor, I'm only trying to help. My daughter is convinced her son has this autism thing, but really he's just spoiled and undisciplined. She's enabling bad behavior and the school is going along with it. Someone has to advocate for that boy's real needs. The judge held up a hand. Ma'am, your grandson has a documented disability with legal protections. His mother is his legal guardian. You have no legal standing to override her decisions about his education or medical care. You attempted to interfere with his special education services, tried to remove him from school without authorization, and violated a restraining order. These are serious matters. But Your Honor, I'm his grandmother. Being a grandmother doesn't give you rights that supersede a parent's custody. In fact, your behavior suggests you may pose a harm to the child's well-being. My mother's face went red. I would never harm. You attempted to undermine services designed to help him succeed. You tried to encourage a school to punish him for disability-related behaviors. You attempted to remove him from school without authorization. These actions are harmful, regardless of your intent. The judge extended the restraining order for 1 year and ordered my mother to attend education classes on autism and special needs parenting. She stormed out of the courthouse, but she didn't violate the order again. Over the next few months, with his enhanced supports in place, Liam thrived. The one-on-one aid helped him navigate sensory challenges. The additional therapies helped him develop communication strategies. The staff training meant his teachers finally understood that his behaviors weren't defiance, they were communication. His meltdowns decreased dramatically. His engagement in class increased. He made his first friend, a boy named Marcus who shared his love of trains and didn't mind that Liam was mostly non-speaking. 6 months after that disastrous IEP meeting, I attended a follow-up meeting. Same conference room, same table, but the atmosphere was completely different. Principal Morrison actually smiled when I entered. Ms. Blackwood, thank you for coming. We wanted to update you on Liam's progress. Mrs. Anderson pulled out charts and data. Liam has made incredible gains. His communication is improving, his sensory regulation is much better, and he's participating in class activities he couldn't handle before. The one-on-one aid has made a tremendous difference. We've also completed staff training on autism awareness, Dr. Hayes added. The entire school has benefited. We're better equipped to serve all our students with different needs. I'm glad to hear that, I said cautiously, still not entirely trusting after everything that had happened. Ms. Blackwood, I want to apologize, Principal Morrison said, and she actually looked sincere. We failed Liam initially. We approached his autism as a behavior problem instead of understanding it as a disability that requires accommodation. Your advocacy, and yes, your legal action, forced us to do better. Liam is thriving now because you fought for him. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you for saying that. We should have been saying it from the beginning. Thank you for not giving up on us, or on Liam's right to be educated here. That night, I sat with Liam while he lined up his toy trains in precise rows, humming contentedly. He looked up at me and signed, "Love you," a new skill he'd learned in therapy. I signed it back, my heart full. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is your mother. I completed the autism education classes the judge ordered. I was wrong about Liam. I was wrong about a lot of things. I'm sorry." I stared at that text for a long time. Part of me wanted to delete it, to keep the boundary I'd built. But another part of me remembered that this was still my mother, and people could change if they were willing to learn. I texted back, "Thank you for educating yourself. That matters. But rebuilding trust will take time. If you truly understand now that Liam's autism is real and valid, we can discuss supervised contact in the future. But only when I'm confident his well-being won't be undermined." Her response came quickly, "I understand. I'll wait. I'm sorry I hurt him. And you?" I didn't respond. I'd said what I needed to say. A year after that initial IEP meeting, Liam was succeeding in school. I had become an active advocate in the local special needs community, and the school district had implemented significant policy changes inspired by our case. And my mother? She sent birthday cards now. Asked about Liam's interests. Read books about autism. Attended a support group for family members of autistic individuals. We'd had a few supervised visits. She was careful now, respectful of his needs, willing to learn. It wasn't the relationship we'd had before. But maybe it was a better one built on respect instead of expectation, on understanding instead of judgment. And Liam? He was happy. Learning. Growing. Being himself in a world that was finally making space for him to be exactly who he was. That was all that mattered. Because I'd fought for him when no one else would. I'd stood up to the school, to my mother, to anyone who tried to punish him for being autistic. And we'd won. Not just the legal battle, but the right for my son to exist, to learn, to thrive as his authentic autistic self. That was worth every difficult conversation, every legal filing, every relationship that had to be rebuilt or released. My mother had tried to sabotage my son's education by telling his principal to punish him more. I'd turned that sabotage into systemic change that protected disabled students. She'd tried to undermine his rights. I'd fought harder to protect them. And in the end, Liam got what he deserved all along, a school that accommodated him, services that supported him, and a mother who would never stop fighting for his right to be exactly who he was. Sometimes the people who should support you are the ones who undermine you most. And sometimes the only option is to fight back, not just for your child, but for every disabled child who deserves better.